Welcome to another episode of Worthy Ones, the video series where I take the newest issue 1 comic books of the week and deem them worthy or not worthy. I'm Mike Spider-Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0, and let's just jump right into it. So the first book we're going to be talking about today is Stranger Things issue 1 of 4. This is a mini-series titled Tales from Hawkins. So this is just about stuff that's going around the main event of Stranger Things. It really doesn't have the main characters in there. I never really bought Stranger Things comic books in the past, but my daughter's a fan. So I was like, you know what? Maybe when I get done reading this, I'll pass this to her and see what she thinks of it. So in this book, it has to do with 2 hunters that live in Hawkins. They're kind of aware of what recently happened at Benny's. He was that restaurant owner that found 11, fed her hamburgers, tried to, actually get information. And so that's kind of like the time frame that we're looking at here. These 2 hunters by the name of Dale and Henry meet up with each other. They go hunting, they have beers, and they realize that something is much different. They hear noises in the woods, and somehow they wind up going into the Upside Down. One of the friends is severely injured, and he's just like, oh my God, Dale, like, what's going on with you? And then they come across a demo dog, right? And that really is the issue. There wasn't really much story or anything that really added to the Stranger Things phenomenon, if you could say that. It was just like 2 characters hunting, and they came across a demogod and they died. Yeah, and that was it. So I'm kind of like, man, are all the stories going to be like this, like so simplistic that it's not going to be really entertaining and have any added value to the main story? I guess not. I mean, this one was written by Jody Hauser, so I don't know. So at the end of the day, if you're strapped for cash, I'm going to deem this book not worthy. There wasn't anything here. I was expecting maybe something out of maybe more of the main characters or maybe the supporting cast, right? Like, what's her name there? The girl that worked in the ice cream shop. Like, I thought that would be cool to see more of her stories. But these guys, these hunters, like, they didn't offer anything. So I was a little bit disappointed here. And if I had to grade this book, I would grade it a C. It was still an entertaining read, and we kind of wanted to see what happened to these hunters, but yeah, it just felt like I wanted something more. So the next number 1 book we're going to be talking about today, guys, is Harrower, issue 1. The color choices that they went with this book was quite interesting, as you just get a lot of like pinks and yellows and like lighter tones. And then when you do get to the darker moments, you do see some of those darker colors, but it's just kind of weird, the art style that they went with on here as well. Maybe not my first choice when it comes to art style. However, as you read it, though, you do get used to the artwork and you kind of just adjust to it. And the story was actually pretty good, so you don't mind that, maybe little mishap. But the character, the Harrower himself, he looks pretty evil, demonic looking, and I was like, okay. And you want to definitely know more about this character. That's the mystery of this book. So who is the Harrower, right? Well, in this town, he's this myth, this legend, this superstition, where it was something that may have happened like eons and eons ago, and there's this sign that's around that represents who that character is, and people don't believe in him, right? They're saying that people summon him to come and whatnot. And then we follow a small band of teenagers here who had a class after class learning about this Harrower character, and you get to see the interactions with each other. And then we get to see this one girl by the name of Jessa, who seems to be is going to be the main character of this book. And we find out that it's the anniversary, like her 10th anniversary of like her brother's death. Her mom still takes it in a very hard way, and all of these people's parents are going to this gala for the evening. It's a very small town. Halloween is approaching. They're very superstitious. So what's going to happen is we wind up seeing these kids wanting to go to this party. Something really bad happens in their car where, it's a flat tire. Some kids disband each other. They kind of go their own separate ways. And then we see a member of the group summon this Harrower character. and there's this sacrifice that's made, and this boy seems like he wants to be like the follower, the servant of this supernatural like creature. So it was a very interesting book. I actually read it twice. I read it once at night before I went to bed, and I felt like I was nodding off a little bit. So I was like, oh, well, let me read it again. And I got a better appreciation for the second time around reading it. So I'm definitely intrigued, and I want to know more. I don't know how many issues this book is, if it's a miniseries or an ongoing, but I'm going to deem this book worthy. This was interesting, intriguing. By the time you got to the end of this issue, it got very violent, and you want to know more about this character and what's this boy's connection to the harrower and all those types of different questions. So at the end of the day, I gotta give this book a solid B. So the next book we're going to be talking about, guys, is Bishop War College. This is issue 1. So I wasn't really going to pick up this book because I was like, oh man, this is probably just an Elseworld story. It seems very boring, dumb, cheesy, right? But I do like Bishop, and I was intrigued, I'm not gonna lie, to find out how we got to this point, how we got to an all-black X-Men team, or is it different versions of Bishop being X-Men themselves, right? So I was very curious about that. So it's like, you know what? I'll pick it up. It's $4.99. If I don't like, the first issue, then obviously I won't continue reading it. When you open up this book, you gotta love the artwork in here. I thought it was very well done, right? Even to the saliva coming out of his mouth. And you can tell in this book he's very angry. He's very war-driven. He's scarred from the war. And so that kind of shows in his training abilities to his young recruits, right? He is the war captain. He's in charge of Krakoa's army and getting them prepared for battle. And the young X-Men here are complaining to Bishop that he's too hard on them and that they want a break, and he won't even give them a break. And he just sends a message like, listen, there is no break in war. You fight until you win. You fight until you die. You got to keep going, And she's like, but we're not in that. We still need breaks. We still need, to have a life right now. And so in Krakoa, he's kind of known to be a little bit of a bully, right? But I love the message that comes across because he's been in war for a lot of his life. And sometimes he does tend to go over the top, but I love the message that was said here. So I felt like, to me, Bishop was written pretty well in this comic book. And that's why I honestly, I'll tell you now that I'm going to continue it, right? The one thing that kind of pissed me off was like Danny Moonstar, how she's like basically yelling at Bishop on the way he's training these kids, and that she basically almost calls him a bully, and he kind of gets all upset. He's like, what? I'm a bully? And he comes to like a little bit of a baby. So I didn't like that aspect of it. But the overall plot was he had to kind of recollect himself, think of a different way to train these kids. In the meantime, we wind up getting Andrea and Andreas von Strucker make their way on Krakoa. So they're the bad guys in this book, and Bishop takes them training once again. They have one more day under his belt in training. So what he does is he's very slick about something. He takes the mutant tempo and slows down time so he can get the most out of their training. While they're going through this training session, though, these two people wind up coming and messing up the day. Somehow, some way, Bishop gets sent to what you think is a different universe, a different Earth, a different time. And of course, by the time you wind up getting to the end of the book, he comes across this version of the X-Men. And that's how the book ends. So the cliffhanger wasn't very like, oh my God, because you knew eventually he was going to come across these people, and it just happened to be the cliffhanger. So I felt like it was a little bit flat at the end, but I do appreciate the way Bishop was written here. I love his motive in this comic. However, my gut is telling me that this might be the best issue I have read in this series. I don't know how many issues this is either. So I'm going to deem this book worthy because, again, I love the way Bishop was written here. I love the artwork in this book. I just don't know the direction that it's going to go forward, and that has me a little bit worried. So I'm going to give this book a C+. This was definitely an entertaining read. Wasn't the best thing I ever read. The mutant kid seemed like a little bit babyish. I thought Danny Moonstar was a little bit of a bitch to yell at Bishop, but you know what? It was entertaining. I'll give it a second issue. So we have our second X-Men book of the day. This is Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants. This is a Sins of Sinister spin-off comic book. So I was very hesitant about this one too. I'm like, oh man, is this going to even be entertaining or worthy of a story that has to deal with this event? Okay, now there ain't some, Joe Schmoes doing this comic book though. You got Al Ewing that writes it. You got Paco Mandino who does the artwork. So right away there, between the creative team, I was like, okay, we could get something that's, really special in this comic. Paco Mandina's artwork is really well done. There's always great color artists that go along with his artwork, and the characters look great. Mystique is in this book. I love the over-exaggerated poses. Storm looks good. So this is a book, like, visually was awesome, and I loved it looking at it, okay? The story, it's Al Ewing. His stories tend to be a little bit out there and can be a little bit confusing for a lot of people. Certain things jump around in the comic book to where you're like, wait, this just happened, that just happened. There's people that betray each other in this comic. So it's a little confusing in that aspect. But in this comic book, you wind up seeing the whole Sins of Sinister event 10 years into the future after, I guess, the initial event happened. We wind up seeing Arakko wind up being conquered. We wind up seeing Storm's forces dismantled. They're in different sectors. And she winds up gathering a group of small people, which she calls them the Brotherhood of Mutants. And the team consists of a few different people. So it consists of herself, Cable, Cora, WizKid, Ironfire, Quick, and then Mystique is in the book as well, okay? And so they're trying to find a way to go back and go to Sinister's lab, get more of McTaggart clones, who is the whole thing that kind of set this whole plan into motion. So they feel like if they destroy all these clones, that it will reset everything and kind of hopefully go back in time, right? So while this whole event is going on, we get to see the plan in motion. We get to see all this action. We get to see them do battle against all these, sinister demons and creatures and stuff like that. But there's a traitor amongst the group, okay? And it kind of makes it confusing because it happens a couple of times in this book. And I guess it happens in the beginning and it happens in the end. And the beginning was like a foreshadowing, right? Type of deal. But it did make for an interesting story. And by the time I did get to the end of it, I was intrigued. And it gives you an understanding of what happened to Mr. Sinister's lab at the end of the main book. So this is kind of a good tie-in, in my opinion. It just seemed like it was a little bit unorganized when it was written. So I'm going to deem this book worthy. I thought this was an entertaining book, and if I had to give it a grade, I would give this one a B- because, again, Al Ewing tends to write things way out there. There were some certain situations, like I said in this book, that just was like too much. We didn't need to go all the way in all these different places, but I like the betrayal. I like the motive. I like the cliffhanger. And yeah, I thought Storm was pretty good, and something shocking happens at the end. So I think you'll like it, guys. Here we go, guys. The newest Goblin story. Red Goblin. This is issue 1. The last time we saw Red Goblin was in Dan Slott's Amazing Spider-Man, as Norman Osborn was the Red Goblin. He also gave a piece of this symbiote to his grandson, Normie Osborn, which he became the Goblin Child. Since then, Normie Osborn's been free of the symbiote until the pages of Venom, which is the Dark Web tie-in. And Dylan Brock wound up giving a piece of symbiote from the Bedlam symbiote, which is also Eddie Brock from the future, if you're following me. And now He teamed up with Dylan to try to stop his dad, but he has become now the newest symbiote, which is AKA Rascal. He's named his symbiote Rascal, which is actually fine because it makes sense. The symbiote is like a little lost puppy. It's just been born. It's attached to a kid. The kid's no more than 10 years old. So a kid is raising it with a kid mind. So you got to think of Rascal being like a little kid symbiote. Interesting relationship these two have with each other, and I enjoyed it. The artwork was actually really well done. The colors were bright and dark at the same time, but you didn't get lost in anything. It was very well detailed. I thought the symbiote looked great, especially when it gets really super pissed off. And I love seeing the interaction between Normie Osborn and the Rascal symbiote. It was very interesting, but the action was great, the pacing was good, and it was a fun story in very many ways, but then serious at times too, right? And I thought what the book did was it did a solid job at catching you up on everything that was going on with Normie. And we get to see his relationship with his mom as well. It's not very good. He's jealous of his half-brother, Stanley. And, sometimes he looks at his mom as just this rich mom, this rich bitch, where she is so used to being handed to everything, right? Now, this book is also a lot about Norman Osborn as well, as he's still struggling with his demons at the same time, as he has gone to this fundraiser that he created in his son's name about addiction and things like that, and it winds up getting attacked by a certain gang. Also from the pages of Amazing Spider-Man back in the day when Dan Slott wrote it, and we get a specific character at the end of the book that we also haven't seen since that time frame. But the journey getting there was fun. We get to see Normie kind of go into some kind of candy shop. We get to see him hide the symbiote from his mom, which made all those scenes a lot of fun. That's what made the book for me. And the way the Rascal symbiote actually talks was so hilarious. He's just like a little kid, like a little baby. And those were fun moments. Like, he hides it under his bed, right? And so just really great stuff, and his mom has no idea. So I'm gonna deem this book worthy. That's right, this book was great, man. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this book was going to be just a cheese whiz type of book. Like, I wouldn't even care about the Red Goblin, but I love how it touches on all elements of the Osborn family, whether it's Norman, Harry, Normie, Stanley, and all their little stories, and the new symbiote Rascal. So I can't wait to see how this adventure continues, and I'm going to grade this book an A. Probably one of my favorite books so far that I've read for the week. So I deem them worthy and not worthy. Do you agree? Disagree? Leave me in the comments below. And if you love my content, I'll leave you more content right here, guys. In fact, this is my comic book haul, and I picked up a huge grail this particular week. You're not going to want to miss it. Guys, as always, keep buying, keep collecting, but always read those comics.